So we're going to be jumping into a new chapter, chapter 7. So you can have your books out, open to page 188 and 199. And we're going to start reading with You Are There. On a warm summer day, you lie on a surfboard enjoying the waves. Each time a large wave curls over you, the sunlight shines through the spray. You take a deep breath before the water crashes over you. A moment later, you start paddling your board back to shore. You're happy visiting the ocean and having fun at the shore, even if you can't drink the water. But why does the water leave white grains on your skin? So, for those of you who have been to the ocean, you might know that the ocean water is salty. If you have not been to the ocean, think about if you've ever been to Lake Michigan swimming in that water. If you get some in your mouth, it tastes just like water. Um, and our whole chapter is going to be about water. We're going to be looking at the different types of water, and then we're going to end the chapter looking at the water cycle. So we're going to begin reading on page 199 with How Can the Oceans Be Described? Oops. Sorry about that. We're still good to go. But how can the oceans be described? I'm just going to move this a little bit so that doesn't happen again. All right. Unlike other planets, Earth has huge amounts of water. This water covers most of the surface of the planet. Most of Earth's water is in the salty oceans. What bodies of water what body of water is closest to where you live? Closest to us is Lake Michigan, which you um, going to Bradford Beach. I know in fourth grade you saw that big body of water. That's the one that's closest to us. More than half the people in the United States live within about 80 kilometers of an ocean. And that's us. We do not live, we do not live 80 kilometers from an ocean, but we live 80 kilometers from water. An ocean we're not near because we're right in the middle of the United States. We're not near the East Coast or the West Coast. Many people live near other bodies of water, such as rivers and lakes. That would be us. Bodies of water play a huge role in our lives. They give us a way to travel, places to catch food, and beautiful sights to visit. Alright, so now for this next section is going to be where you want your notes out, so just make sure you have those with you as we go up. All of the waters of Earth make up the hydrosphere, and that's going to be something you want to know right away, is all of the water of Earth makes up the hydrosphere. And if you think of the word hydration, so when you drink water, you're hydrated. You see the word hydrated. That always has to do with water. So that's something that you know right away. The hydrosphere covers a little less than 3/4 of the Earth's surface. So if you're thinking about just the Earth and 3/4 of it is water. So all of this is water, and it's just a small chunk of land. Almost all of the hydrosphere is ocean water. And that's going to be also very important because of um, the salt in the ocean water that's going to impact us. Only 3/100 or 3% of the hydrosphere is in other places. The Pacific Ocean is the largest, and this is going to be important. So, from biggest to smallest, you don't have to write the word ocean after, but we've got the Pacific is the largest, followed by the Atlantic. The Indian, Southern, and Arctic. So just size wise, so the biggest is the Pacific and then goes in that order. On a map or globe, you can see that all the oceans are connected. So although they're different sizes, they're still all connected. The Pacific is not only the largest ocean, but it is also the deepest. The average depth of the Pacific Ocean is about 4,000 meters. It is the deepest place. It is more, or in its deepest place, it is more than 11,000 meters deep. And we're actually not even able to go all the way down to the bottom of the ocean. We wouldn't be able to survive there. So the deepest ocean is the Pacific. And then all oceans are connected. The oceans are all a little bit different from one another. Some have more storms than others. Many properties of the water are different, such as how salty the water is or the average temperature. Even the levels of the ocean surfaces, called sea level, are slightly different. So that's going to be another thing. All oceans are connected, but they're also different. All right, going on to the next page. Salinity. Have you ever been swimming in the ocean and happened to get a mouthful of some seawater? If you have, you know it tastes salty. Ocean water tastes this way because it contains many kinds of salt. Ocean water not only tastes bad, it is bad for your health if you drink too much of it. There was one time I was about 8 years old. My brothers were 16 and 18, so a lot bigger than me. And we were in the ocean and they were throwing me inside the waves all day, which was a lot of fun. But when I got out of the water, I didn't feel very good because I swallowed way, way, way too much of the water. And that much salt getting into your body is really bad for it. So that can be a problem if you're swallowing too much water. So there, um, so there's many different kinds of salts in the ocean. There's not just one kind of salt, but different ones. Sorry, and that adds to your notes right here. The oceans get salt from rivers. Rivers dissolve small amounts of salts from rocks and soil and carry the salts to the ocean. Most of the salt is sodium chloride, which is just common table salt. So if you put salt on any of your food, and then that's the same kind of salt that's going to be in the ocean. When water evaporates from the ocean, the dissolved salts are left behind in the ocean water. So most of the salt is sodium chloride. Just want to make sure I spell that right. Which we know as common table salt. Salinity is the blank of how blank the water is. And we're going to see that right away in the next section. Salinity is a measure of how salty water is. So it's the measure of how salty water is. All right, we're going to continue reading on. Ocean water is more salty in some places than in other places. Places where rivers pour fresh water into the ocean have low salinity. In warm areas, ocean water evaporates fairly quickly. Salt is left behind, and the ocean water has higher salinity. So places where rivers pour fresh water into oceans have lower salinity, which makes sense because if you put fresh water into it, it's gonna make the salt move around and be less. A liter of cold water with high salinity is heavier than a liter of water that is either warmer or has lower salinity. Some currents in the water or in the ocean are caused by cold water sinking under warmer water. Most currents in the ocean surfaces are caused by winds. And we won't get too much into currents today. That is going to be something though you see that has to do with the different weather we can have can be based on the currents that are happening throughout the whole world. We're going to continue on to our last section, ocean temperatures. The temperature of ocean water varies from place to place. And right away, I'm going to write that down because that's a huge difference that we're going to see. Ocean water near the equator is about 30 degrees Celsius. Near the poles, ocean water can be as cold as -2 degrees Celsius. So that's going to be a really huge difference. Whereas near the equator, where it's further south, you're going to be able to swim in that ocean water. Maybe not in the winter, but almost year round. Whereas if you go towards the North or South Pole, that water is freezing or very close to freezing. The water is not always colder just because it is farther north. Some currents carry warm water toward the poles. So it's going to be really important to know that currents carry water to different places and can change the temperature. We're just going to go through a couple of them. So the Gulf Stream is such a current. It moves warmer water from the Caribbean Sea to the North Atlantic Ocean. Other currents carry cold water toward the equator. The California current carries cold water southward along the coast of the United States. So we're just going to write those down because that'll help us remember that water gets moved around. It doesn't just depend where it starts. So the Gulf Stream is a current that carries warm water south. So is a current that carries warm water north. And then the California current carries then cold water south. So the water kind of then will just go in different directions. So you might have cold and warm water mixing, and that's where you sometimes see storms come up. Much of the salt we add to our food comes from the ocean. One way that we get salt is by evaporating ocean water. People who process the salt allow ocean water to flow into shallow ponds. The water evaporates and the salt is left. Other materials such as magnesium, drinking water also come from ocean water. Ocean water can be made drinkable by removing the salt, but this process is very expensive, so it is not done in many places. Most places have access to fresh water, so they don't go by taking the salt out because it's very expensive and it takes a while. The ocean is the source of many useful products. Do you like tuna fish? Tuna is just one of the many foods that come from the ocean. So, just filling in our last part of our notes, we get salt, magnesium, and drinking water, food, and drinking water from the ocean. Ocean water can be made drinkable by removing the salt. So, just today we looked at oceans. As we go on in our chapter, we are going to be continuing to look at other types of water. For right now, you can have out your lesson 1 review sheet. Make sure that your name is on. And then the first part, we went through all of these, make sure that it makes sense across. And then as far as the true and false goes, all of these are going to be in your notes. I will do just one of them with you. We'll do number 6 together. Places where rivers pour fresh water into the ocean have low salinity. So I know that we looked through that. Places where rivers pour fresh water into the ocean have lower salinity. So I know then that is true. This word is northward, so just make sure I know it's a little bit cut off. All right, and then number 9, it says as of July 2004, the population of the United States was 293,027,571. If more than half of these people live within 80 kilometers of an ocean, about how many people live within that distance? So we're going to have to divide that into 1/2. So if you go ahead and just show your work, I'll help you set it up. And then you're dividing that by 2. I know that that is a long problem, but make sure that you just walk through it and then go ahead and give your answer. You can write that out, but that should help you out having that work there. And then you are all set to go for lesson 1.